credible allegations of a potential link between agents of the government of India and the killing of a Canadian citizen, Hardeep Singh Nijjar.
I think it is Canada and its growing reputation as a place, as a safe haven for terrorists, for extremists and for organized crime.
19 ਨਵੰਬਰ ਤੋਂ ਗਲੋਬਲ ਬਲੌਕੇਡ ਤੇ 에ਅਰ ਇੰਡੀਆ ਦੁਨੀਆ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਚੱਲਣ ਨਹੀਂ ਦਿੱਤੀ ਜਾਏਗੀ।
Khalistani extremists are being encouraged all the time. I also know, again, this is my allegation, I'm not giving you any evidence on that. I also know that some of these Khalistani extremists and terrorists are deep assets of CSIS.
The Indian government hired thugs to terrorize Canadians.
The real thug at the heart of what is unfolding between India and Canada is the Khalistani terrorist Gurpatwant Singh Pannun, the lawyer for Hardeep Singh Nijjar, who was at the heart of the face-off between India and Canada. Pannun has now released yet another video, brazenly following up on his earlier threats against Air India, this time listing specific Air India routes and specific Air India flights that he's asking people to boycott or else. We are, of course, not releasing the details of the routes that he has listed, but this doubling down on his threat, renewed this year, he made the same threat in 2023, renewed this year, comes close on the heels of an astonishingly brazen announcement of a bounty for information of the Home Minister Amit Shah's trips and also threats against CRPF-run schools in India. What's going on? The question that must be asked has to be one beyond India and Canada. And the question has to be this: why is America protecting a man called Gurpatwant Pannun? Remember, it is Pannun around whom the Americans are investing so much capital that they've named a former RNW official whom they say was involved in the plot or a plan to take out Pannun. Pannun is the lawyer for Nijjar, who was killed on Canadian soil. Canada has blamed India. India has denied this. But on Pannun, India has actually set up an investigation team. That team has visited the United States of America. Meanwhile, Pannun goes on making one after the other astonishing, open, brazen threat against India. In some videos, he can be heard talking about the balkanization of India. Why are the Americans protecting him? Former RNW chief A.S. Dullat told this program that he believes that Gurpatwant Pannun is a CIA asset. What's actually going on? This at a time when the Canadian police are now confusingly talking about the Hardeep Singh Nijjar case being quite different and separate from the one that they have implicated Indian diplomats in. India has, of course, said this is rubbish and have pulled back their diplomats, including our High Commissioner. Let me introduce our panel on the program today as we look at an astonishing turn of events. Terry Milewski, who's one of the world's foremost experts on Khalistan, based out of Canada, joins us, veteran journalist and author. Always a pleasure, Terry. Also joining us is Kushal Mehra. Kushal is the host of the Caravaka podcast. He's based out of Canada and has, in that sense, a unique perspective as an Indian living in Canada. Thank you very much, Kushal. Veteran diplomat, Ambassador Vivek Katju is with us. Always a pleasure, sir. And someone who has been a sleuth and a top police officer is Yashovardhan Azad. He's with us as well. I want to get first comments on, Pannun. It's I don't like to platform this man. But at the same time, without reporting what he's up to, it's very difficult to actually underscore who the Americans are actually protecting. This man, clearly emboldened now by the American move to protect him, also the lawyer for Nijjar, has now, Ambassador Katju, doubled down, tripled down on his threats against Air India. He makes this threat, it seems, every year. He made one in 2023. But this time, this threat is coming alongside, more than 200 hoax bomb threats against Indian planes. And somehow I join the dots between these things. I don't see them as separate. He has now released specific routes. He said, SESE flight, these are the flights on which you must not travel or else. And the Americans are protecting him. You have always argued that the American case is different. The Americans have behaved more maturely. The Canadians have flubbed it. Trudeau is, a clown. Oh, I mean, you didn't use those words. I'm using that word. But why are the Americans protecting this man? What is going on? Every day there's a shocking new threat from him.
Look, I like to distinguish between matters. I like to analyze them and, if necessary, put them in compartments. And we are fortunate to have Mr. Azad with us on this show, because he is a veteran police officer and he can tell me whether my approach is right or wrong. First things first, the Americans have indicted a certain Mr. Gupta and an ex-employee of the government of India, alleging that they had hatched a conspiracy in India to engage the services of a hitman to eliminate Pannun, and that these matters are now subject to a criminal case in America. Now, that does not absolve, quote unquote, the victim in this case, or the object of this conspiracy, from any actions that he might take which infringe what I would believe is American law. The problem is that as long as he's asking for, say, Khalistan, the breakup of India, etc., the Americans may claim that that is protected by free speech. I personally don't expect.
How can they possibly say that?
No, I please hear me out. I personally don't believe that free speech can extend to demands for the balkanization of a country. In India, certainly, and Mr. Azad can correct me, if any Indian citizen were to demand this of a country, then of another country, then he can be booked under the relevant provisions of the Indian criminal statute for promoting enmity between India and that state. I don't know sufficiently about American law, because American criminal law is terribly complex. It's different for each different state. It's not a federal statute. There are federal statutes, but there are also state statutes on criminal law. But certainly, if there is a video which a man has made in which he is saying that don't fly on Indian aircraft, then I cannot believe that there isn't law in America of a criminal nature which can be invoked against such a person. Certainly also I believe that this would be contravening the conventions to which countries are parties, and these are conventions of the International Civil Aviation Organization. Now, it is here that India can expect and demand that the Americans take action against Pannun, because this is threatening lives. This is disrupting civil aviation and commerce. This cannot be covered by free speech. So, if the Americans are not doing so, then we must openly say that the Americans are being derelict and are not keeping to their own laws and to international conventions. Here, we should do, and if necessary, we should file a criminal. There are cases against Pannun. He's been declared against. The NIA has proceeded against him, and this can be another charge. So and we can ask for extradition to try him, which we have on America. So let us segregate these things and look upon them in this fashion.
Why aren't we doing so? Before I open this up, the question to me is, we seem to be cooperating quite sagely and quietly with the Americans. I use the word cooperating because we don't really know what's happening. We know this much, that we've said their allegations are a matter of serious concern. We've sent an inquiry team there. We have dismissed already the former RANW officer, Vikas Yadav, identified in US indictment documents. But we have not made a public noise in the manner that we have made about Canada. Whereas the astonishing threats are coming from Pannun day after day after day.
That is something that only the Minister of External Affairs or the Ministry of External Affairs and the relevant authorities can answer. I cannot answer. I, for one, am surprised that we haven't taken the matter publicly, which we should in this case. And as far as the inquiry team which went to America, the Americans have been open in making demands. If you go through the statement made by the State Department spokesperson on October 22nd, and of the American expectations of how we will take forward our investigations into the alleged conspiracy regarding Pannun, it's clear. Now, if Pannu is saying, making all these videos, and you haven't shown these videos, I haven't seen them. But if
the video is with us. Can we just pull it up? We're not playing the sound on it because there's a whole lot of inflammatory rhetoric. But the video, the video is here. Could we please play the video without the sound, like we have prepared it? The video is right here, Barkha Dutt. And we have, summarized its key points, which is basically a listing of the specific Air India routes. He's listing the routes. I am not sharing that information because I don't see why I should amplify him. But this is what it is. Don't fly Air India from November 1st to 19th. He calls to kill India economically. That is in this video. We are playing this video without sound. This video that you see on your screen, I am consciously playing this video without sound, and I have blurred large parts of the visuals of this video because the rhetoric is extremely inflammatory. So I do not want to amplify it, but this is the video. Let me just unmute you so you can speak. Go ahead, Ambassador.
There are two aspects.
Yes.
One, which Americans can claim is covered, like the Canadians have been saying, is covered under free speech. One of the Canadian, I think, deputy ministers giving evidence before this committee in Parliament said it's awful but lawful. I'm quoting his exact words: awful but lawful. But certainly, if you are saying don't fly on these routes, don't fly.
He said we'll balkanize India by 2047. We will balkanize India by 2047.
Again, that can be, in certain legal jurisdictions, there can be case law which says this is covered by free speech. It is not like us. For us, it is horrible. It is not covered by free speech. The criminal statute is invoked. And that is why I think we need to have deep discussions, and I've said it on your shows earlier, with the Canadians, for instance, and also with the Americans, that look, free speech, and build up international opinion that free speech can't mean harming the territorial integrity of the country. Trudeau says we are for India's territorial integrity, but under our law, we can't stop people from saying that India's territorial integrity is not sacrosanct. But when it comes to harming people, telling people that you don't fly Air India, etc., that by no stretch of imagination can be covered by free speech. It is a criminal offense. And I'm pretty sure in any jurisdiction, criminal laws can be invoked, and the government of India should demand the invocation of criminal laws. Certainly, they should invoke our own criminal statutes and proclaim that we are doing so, specifically in this case of this video, and ask that the Americans open up their own investigation and go after this man. And
Absolutely.
Mr. Azad can tell me if I'm up on the wrong track.
Before I come to Mr. Azad, there has been one theory offered to explain why the Americans are investing this kind of energy in this man. And that theory is that he's a CIA asset. I don't know what you all think about it. Hang on, Ambassador Katju. I want to play out Mr. Dullat's comment where he said this. It's just a 30-second clip, and I'll come right back to Yashovardhan. Take a look.
Look, I'm not talking of a mole. I'm talking of a straightforward agent. He would be a mole if he was in Punjab, but he's right there. The reason I'm saying this, and I'll keep on saying it, and I told you before, is the kind of support that this man is getting. As you say, he's bad news. He's a terrorist. So why are the Americans supporting him? For what reason? If he's not one of their own, if he's not has no link with them, then the Americans don't want Khalistan, surely. The Canadians have a separate thing because there are a lot of more Sikhs in Canada than in the United States. The Americans have nothing to do with Khalistanis or whatever it is. So why is this particular gentleman, a special favorite of theirs? That they're so concerned, and it's not even somebody who has been gunned down or anything. That there was a plan to gun him down.
Okay, so here's the question to Mr. Yashovardhan Azad. Two questions. Why are we not making more of a noise? And do you buy this theory that this guy is working for the Americans? He's more talk than anything, or he's some kind of David Headley Redux? Well, if he's a David Headley Redux, David Headley was a mastermind of 2611 and never since to be seen by anybody in India. Triple agent, that's what spooks believe. What do you think? What is going on? How does Pannun every day? They're releasing their videos to Indian journalists because their videos can't be seen here. I had to write to them today saying, please, I blocked them. But before that, I said, do not write to me. I do not want to see your video. I do not want to engage with anybody who threatens my country. Now, this terrorist is openly threatening the country. We are saying nothing. Why are we saying nothing, Mr. Azad? Can we unmute Mr. Azad, please? Hang on, let me do it. Yeah, go ahead. Yeah.
I'm dying to speak for the last 5 minutes.
Sorry, please, go ahead.
Okay. You see, FBI can have deep assets, and it does have assets from many distinguished fields of terrorism, narco trade, drug smugglers, everyone, academicians. And, whether this man is a deep asset of the FBI or not is irrelevant. I can hardly see what he can supply to them, except some rubbish about Khalistani activities, or in fact, his pronouncements or his future plans, like during the farmers' agitation. But I don't know how it really helps the Americans. But let me, some very important critical issues have been raised by my distinguished colleague, Mr. Katju. In fact, he has spoken more like a lawmaker than a diplomat, and I'm extremely happy that we have this kind of a support in the external ministry quarters. First is that, any kind of a movement, if somebody is asking for Khalistan, it's fine, it's okay, it's a demand. But if anyone talks about having Khalistan after balkanizing India and giving the means, that comes under the UAPA, and it certainly comes under American law because it is coming from a foreign soil. And incidentally, let me tell you also another thing, that NIA has been empowered by the act that anyone who does terrorist activities from a foreign soil, NIA is allowed to investigate. Let me also tell you that NIA has somehow perhaps better dossiers than any foreign agencies on the activities it has compiled against the Khalistanis, both in Canada and in USA. And in fact, these dossiers have been given to them from time to time after being updated. Now, the third point, which is very, very important, is, what Mr. Katju said again, was that, whether Pannun was a victim does not absolve him of all these activities. And given the fact that this is also a crime on the US government soil, NIA as an investigating agency has the right to do two things. Either send him over, it has the right to question. Secondly, it has the right to extradite him, and we have a treaty with that. So I don't think how US can deny that, because if a similar thing happens here, they'll be the first to ask for them. And mind you, FBI made a very political kind of a statement the other day that nobody can interfere with the democratic, freedom, etc., of the Americans on the American soil. No, you're not supposed to make these statements. You're just supposed to arrest and say there was a plot against an American terrorist, and so we are catching the conspirators. Now, the last point which I want to make is that when a terrorist like Pannun announces plans, and this is extremely serious, that when he announces plans and virtually tells us that there is a plot to attack these planes because he's giving the routes, etc., there is no reason why to hide it, our reaction. And I was, in fact, a little surprised when our foreign minister, when asked about this, said that, well, we are not really aware of any threat to our Air India planes. Yes, some statements, etc., have been made. I don't know why we are downplaying. We should not. In fact, this is the time. This is our time, in fact. All this time, we were, a little on the defensive. But this is a time to go on the offensive completely. And I'm sure some kind of missive is coming from the external affairs, because this is a time when we should push it very hard, the right to question him and ask for his extradition after questioning him. If not, bring him here or question him over there and then move for the extradition for Indian courts.
Both you and Ambassador Katju have made, in a way, similar arguments that even if there is a murder for plot allegation that is being investigated, it does not absolve Pannun from making incendiary statements that openly call for violence against another country, its airlines, its civilian population. And therefore, the mystery to me, and I think, Yasho, you referred to this, is why are we being somewhat muted? What is actually going on here? Why aren't we going to town? You believe that it's only a matter of time before we see more on this. I want to, in the meanwhile, look at what's happening in Canada. Now, we have this very intriguing statement from the Canadian police, now declaring the Niger case to be separate from the one in which Indian diplomats were declared persons of interest. This is now apparently separate. I'm going to play that clip for you. You must take a look. Let's play.
You spoke broadly about the threat that you, in your estimation, those agents of the government in India posed, and in particular, their links to the use of organized crime in very, very serious crimes across Canada. The Foreign Affairs Minister took it a step further and linked them specifically as persons of interest to the murder of Mr. Nijjar. Do you draw the same link?
Yeah, so I got to be careful with the fact that the Nijjar case is before the courts. And when we came out on Thanksgiving Day, it was really, and we've said this all along, there has always been a separate and distinct investigation on the involvement of government of India in criminality in Canada. And that's when we came out that was specific to that and nothing to do with the Nijjar case, which is before the courts.
Okay, Terry, please help me here. He's basically saying, from what I've understood, is that the Nijjar case is separate. The case in which the High Commissioner and other diplomats were declared persons of interest is separate. That is some general criminality, quote unquote, point. And the Nijjar case that has caused a storm for the last year is now before the courts, and the Canadian police is now saying, oh, we're treating that completely separately. What's going on?
What is going on is a damn good question. I think what's going on is that the RCMP traditionally has been absolutely terrified of being caught playing politics or fighting court cases out in the open before the trial, because judges in Canada are very particular about that. You are not allowed to try the case in the public forum. You must not start making people look bad outside the court, and then the defense will say, look, you're making our client look bad outside the court, and this evidence isn't going to be acceptable, and the judge may very well throw it out. There are very strict rules about this, and I think this is what is going on here. They don't want to prejudice the Nijjar trial. They don't want to ruin their own case by talking about it outside court. So
but hasn't Trudeau already done that? Sorry to interrupt you, but hasn't Justin Trudeau already done precisely that?
Indeed, but I think that on the Indian side, just as Pannun is extremely strategic and careful and understands as a lawyer the weaknesses in Canadian law, where he can say bounty and then you say, well, he's putting a bounty on somebody's head, that's threatening his life. But he says, I only mean that we are putting a bounty. We will pay for information so that we can bring a legal case against, in this case, Amit Shah, who is the latest person that they're threatening. So Indians need to be a little bit more strategic about where they can find a way to go after these cases within the bounds of Canadian law. For example, hate speech. We haven't even mentioned yet that part of Pannun's video is that these new threats against Air India are couched in terms of as a celebration of a great Sikh martyr, namely Beyant Singh, one of the assassins of Indira Gandhi in 1984. Now, that's wait a minute. Now we're talking about celebrating violence, glorifying terrorism. Now we're getting close to something which I can see a clever lawyer could very well make out a case in Canadian law and say, look, there's something where you can't say that's free speech. You're threatening somebody's life. Why aren't you doing something about that? And he's done it before. He's offered these kind of bounties before and made that excuse. Why can India not hire a lawyer and a Canadian lawyer and say, look, you're not taking action where you could take action. And here are the Canadian laws, like, for example, hate speech. Can you tell me that it's not hate speech when you glorify a murderer, Beyant Singh in this case, and the murder of Indira Gandhi? When you ask for a bounty, let the defense argue, if they can, that, oh, no, when we say bounty, we don't mean bounty in the traditional sense of putting a price on somebody's head. No, we only mean a boycott. Well, in that case, if you're saying it's just an economic boycott that you're talking about, how come you also say that it's if you fly Air India, you'll be risking your life? Now, you will recall that is exactly what Mr. Pannun has said in the past. So why are the Indian side, this sort of general rage won't work? That's what I'm saying to you, is that Indians may reasonably be very angry about what Pannun is able to get away with, both in the United States and in Canada. Well, that's fine. I sympathize with you, and I think it should be stopped. But how exactly? You can't just wave a magic wand and say, we're angry, so you should change Canadian law. You must work within what the law is actually.
So be smarter. Be smarter.
You might do better. You might have some success if you try.
Okay. Before I come to Kushal, Ambassador Katju, you have a brief interjection. Yeah, go ahead.
Yes. It's not for me to invoke Canadian laws. If someone is violating Canadian laws, I would imagine it's for the Canadian police. They have jurisdiction. And it is for the Canadian political leadership to ensure that the police takes action. The word bounty, and again, Yash will correct me if I'm wrong. The basic rule of interpretation of any statute or any statement is the common sense meaning of that word. The word bounty can only be interpreted as in terms of assassination and murders. Money paid for that. No one can claim this, that it's meaning something else. And should India tell Canada that here is a man who's breaking your laws and you should take action against them, or is it for the Canadians themselves? It is Canadian law that is being broken. It's not the first time that the Khalistanis have glorified the murderers of Indira Gandhi.
Correct.
That has been our basic point. They seem to cover it within the ambit of free speech. Awful but lawful. Terry, that is what your guys are saying. Awful but lawful. And I can only go by what they are saying. If you are saying that no, this is not lawful, then it's for them to take action.
Yashu, Terry, give me a second. Kushal's been waiting very patiently. Kushal, it's over to you. You've also been talking about, and I think last time we were talking, you, me, and Sherveer were talking about, a blacklist that you think hasn't been paid enough attention to, getting people off a so-called blacklist. Talk about what's going on there.
So in 2019, the then Chief Minister of Punjab, Captain Amrinder Singh, had requested the Prime Minister of India, Mr. Modi, there is a blacklist mostly full of Khalistanis. And I don't know what had gotten into the Honorable Prime Minister and the Honorable Chief Minister of Punjab. They decided in their wisdom to wave off the blacklist. Now, this entire, and I want to use the Punjabi word here, siapa. This entire siapa has started after that blacklist has been removed. In 2019, 300 odd people have been removed from the blacklist. And one of the people on that blacklist was, I know only one name because all the names don't come out, Barkha. You know, all the names don't come out. But I know for sure Malik was on the blacklist. Ripudaman Singh Malik was on that blacklist. He was not allowed to travel to India. The blacklist gets removed. Mr. Malik then writes a very nice letter praising the government of India, allowing him to travel to India. Lo and behold, in a few days or weeks after that, he's dead. Then, lo and behold, a few days after that, we have this internecine gang warfare happening where I don't know how many people remember the murder of Sukhdev Singh last year in Winnipeg. You know, it's not just a Niger. There was Sukhdev Singh, who was he was a 39-year-old. He was murdered. And, you know, this entire thing has been unleashed after that blacklist has been removed. I don't know why nobody picks it up. Like, I'm the only one shouting and screaming since last year. I was like, check the blacklist. Everything has been unleashed after the blacklist has been removed. Now ask yourself, these people are Khalistanis. I repeat again and again, are we naive on the Indian side now that Khalistan is not a Pakistan project? Are we that naive now? Like, have we forgotten everything what Pakistan has done to India in the 80s and the 90s during the peak of the Khalistan movement? And then lo and behold, this blacklist is gone. This man Malik is praising Modi, the Prime Minister of India. He's praising the state, so he's praising Modi. And then suddenly, one by one, everybody starts getting bumped off. And we are so naive that we can't even ask the Canadians. And I am so sick and tired of Pannun being an American citizen. Pannun is a Canadian citizen too. He's a dual passport holder. The Americans have a First Amendment. Where is the First Amendment in Canada? Where is the First Amendment in Canada? I've read Canadian laws and American laws both as far as free speech is concerned, because I'm a free speech absolutist. Pannun can be charged easily under Canadian law. But this is Canada, where who's that? Santokh Singh Khela recently came on CBC. He was the mastermind of the bombing. He had a life sentence that was reduced. You have one criminal after the other being mainstreamed by Canadian media, and then you have the RCMP chief coming and saying, I'm sorry, I'm not as positive as Terry when it comes to the RCMP and their capabilities. And if the Canadian state's excuses, we cannot act on things if they're not within the purview of the law. No, when they want to act, they can freeze your bank assets if you donate $25 to the truckers protest.
Isn't
so
the
color
real
me
problem,
skeptical, please.
But isn't the real problem, and then I'll come to Yasho briefly, Kushal, that there's a conflation between Sikh and Khalistani. Like, if you talk to most Canadians, they don't get the difference. They think Pannun is an activist.
Oh, yaar, they think the Sukhdev Singh who died in Winnipeg, now they're going to call him a Sikh activist. He was a gangster who came to Canada in 2017. Right. And all these people come on a student visa, yaar. It's become a joke now. The student visa of Canada is a joke. Justin Trudeau and his government, now with Jagmeet Singh, now Jagmeet Singh is out. I don't know. Jagmeet Singh seems to remove rose petals. He loves me not. I don't know what Jagmeet Singh does on a daily basis. It's kabuki theater over here. You cannot take the Canadians seriously. And this is coming from an Indian who doesn't take India seriously.
Okay, that's a lot of anger there. But Yasho, let me pick up two things. One, this debate around this blacklist. That a few years ago in 2019, you had names that were blacklisted on entry to India waived. Kushal argues, and some others have been arguing that there's some connection. Secondly, we haven't spoken about this enough. The Indian aviation system in the last fortnight has been wrecked by bomb threats that have turned out to be a hoax. But come on, we are now talking about, I think, more than 250 such threats that have led to planes going back to bay, diverting midair, threats of schools shutting down. Now you have this list being, released. This is very old. Can we take this off? Because actually, at last count, it was close to 300 flights that I counted. Yasho, is there a connection you see between these hoax threats, what Pannun is saying, the waiver of this blacklist? I mean, it's incredible what's going on.
The blacklist and these are two different things. Whenever our VVIPs travel abroad or president of US comes here, both the agencies share a lot of photographs. I mean, these are the lookout circulars. These are the kind of people whose photographs who are threat to our VIPs. That's a list. And the blacklist is, of course, people who cannot enter. Now, as a mark of reconciliation, I mean, the MEA or the intelligence agency and they get together. And as a mark of reconciliation, if they allow some people to come in, well, I think that's allowed. I mean, every government has a right. We have these terrorists meeting with the terrorists to lay down arms and things like that. That is a kind of a state policy, which should be accepted. In fact, they should be, praised.
There should be some gain, no? When these moves are made, there is some gain. You bring them over to the mainstream. You bring them over to your side.
Sometimes I can tell you. I can't tell you very explicitly, but sometimes there are gains. There are a lot of gains. I can tell you that with great confidence. We get a lot of information too by people who are very happy to come in. There are a lot of information here. The other thing which I want to say is that when those gentlemen talk about the gang warfare, in Canada, I remember hearing Terry would support me on this. West Vancouver chief Keith Vaz or Heed or somebody, he said that the Lawrence Bishnoi gang extortion led to a lot of Indians giving money because these people were vulnerable here. The families were vulnerable here. But similarly, Niger also went as a plumber. And a lot of the activities, criminal activities, not major, which are taking place in Punjab, are also at the behest of the Canadians over there. It is also very clear, and we have all the records, that the Pakistani embassy officials are meeting them all the time. So, this is an ongoing game to tell our diplomats that they should not find out about the anti-India activities which are going on in Canada is very, very strange. Is that snooping? Is that surveillance? It's nonsense. This is the job of our diplomats to keep our country safe. So I don't see any reason how you can level a charge like this. If there are so many of these US embassy officials and Canadian embassy officials, and how many of them were here? What are they doing? Eating biryanis? So that's a little unfair. And the other question you asked about was the bomb hoaxes we were getting. Now, obviously, this is a very, very planned operation. And I was speaking on some other channel and I said, this is a plan which is coming from a very, very important and a targeted source. It can be done with the help of bots, computer bots. I mean, and with all the facilities over there, I had suggested that we should, in fact, collaborate with the FBI and ask them, please tell us whether these threats are coming from your soil, VPN networks, the works. So we know here the reasons which are coming from within the country. Either there are passengers, either there are hoax calls, either people who are getting late, who have some enmity. But that's different. This is coming from organized source, from a foreign soil, and we need the cooperation of the US agencies or the Canadian agencies. But we haven't had any information so far on this particular point.
But don't you think we're being too muted? Before I go to Terry and we start, and I'm sure Kushal, you don't think we're being muted? I mean, why are you nodding? Which part are you nodding to, Kushal?
No. I'm not talking about the being muted part. I'm talking about where are we supposed to? I think the entire strategy of the government of India is completely flawed, if you ask me. The government of India seems to think that the Canadians are just going to act out of their generosity. The Canadians don't care. Either the government of India is so naive that it thinks that the infiltration of the Khalistani network in the entire Canadian body politic is so irrelevant that, oh, we can just ignore them. I don't understand what the government of India is doing. I keep on stating it again and again on every platform that I go to. All you have to do is write one letter with the word Khalistani in it to any political outfit or any media outfit in Canada. I say this with full responsibility. It will get leaked in 1 hour. And are we supposed to be... I'm criticizing the government of India for trying to negotiate with Canada. Stop negotiating. Just don't deal with them. Stop trade. That's what I'm saying. You should not trade with a country that harbors actual threats to Canadians and Indians. What is the point of all of this? I don't understand what the government of India is thinking. My criticism is towards the government of India. Canada is doing what it is doing. I find it appalling as an Indian that airlines get threatened on a daily basis, and I'm just supposed to sit here and plead with the Canadian authorities. I don't care what the Americans do beyond the point. Let's get real. Gurpatwant Singh Pannu is a Canadian, and he was a lawyer of Niger, right? Wasn't he the lawyer of Niger?
Yes.
So why are the Canadians being left scot-free?
Yeah. I mean, I see what you're asking in a different way. I'm asking the same thing. Why are we not doing more? And I'll come to Ambassador Katju and Yashovardhan Azad on that. But Terry, since you made the point, be strategic, and Ambassador Katju said, why the hell is that our problem? What would you say to that, Terry?
Well, I would say that there is ample scope for the Indians to sit down with the Canadians and to say, here is where we think you're falling short. Here's why you ought to take a more aggressive attitude to dealing with these threats and video. These have been going on for years. And I've already itemized, 2 or 3 areas, hate speech, for example, the glorification of proven terrorists like Behant Singh. This is only the latest example, that these are areas where there's ample scope for diplomacy and for the Indian side to say to the Canadians, look, here and here and here and here are specific areas where we think you could bring a criminal case and you're not doing it. Why are you not doing it? It's no use just being enraged, as I say, and saying, well, why are the Canadians protecting terrorists? Well, the Canadians don't see themselves as protecting terrorists. They don't see enough hard evidence that, for example, that you can show that Gurpatwant Singh Pannun is in fact guilty of specific terrorist offenses. Now,
so what do the Canadians see? What do the Canadians see when he? Can I ask you a question? What do the Canadians see when he talks about balkanizing India, or he says don't travel Air India on these dates? What do the Canadians see when they see this?
I think he's tiptoeing up to the line of the law, and you could probably get a lawyer to show how he maybe has crossed the line in that particular case. But it's not happening. India isn't really making that case. They're saying he's a terrorist. We've designated him a terrorist, and Canada should, when we say jump, Canada should say how high. Canada should say, okay, well, that's good enough for us. We don't need hard evidence that he's done anything but in the way of a terrorist offense, as we understand it conventionally. Now, so there is an area of the law where I don't think India is exploiting the possibilities in a sophisticated way, and they could and they should. And at the same time, I think Canada needs to do a complete rethink. I mean, Kushal is talking about a rethink on the Indian side. I endorse what he said. But Canada also needs to do a rethink because it has been looking the other way all this time. For 40 years, it's normalized the display of martyr posters of mass murderers like Talvinder Pabbar, the Air India bomber. It's completely normal now for Canadian politicians to show up and smile and wave at events and Vaisakhi parades where these people are glorified. And it's absolutely absurd that should be okay. I mean, I'm talking, there's another area here, not just use of the criminal law to go after people to try to make a case that they are breaking that law, but also denunciation, the power of condemnation by politicians. All party leaders in Canada should be saying, we're not going to approve our MPs going to those kind of events. If you're going to be glorifying terrorism, our party will not be present. And why can't the Conservatives say that? Why can't the Liberals say that? Why can't the NDP say that? Because they're chicken. That's what's really happening. It's because it's been going on so long and they're afraid, we might lose votes. We might lose our vote bank politics. Our theory is that if we're nice to the Khalistanis, we'll win, which is nonsense, by the way, because in the general population, the Khalistanis are a tiny little minority. They're just scared. They're scared of their own shadow. They're scared that they will lose votes if they say a word to condemn the overt and outrageous praise and glorification of mass murderers. That has got to stop. So that is an area where you could embarrass and have an impact on the Canadians. If you go after them on that, what argument have they got? They don't have anything other than cowardice.
Yeah, Ambassador Katju, why aren't we doing it? Why are we being sort of quite sober and measured even now? Okay, we've withdrawn our High Commissioner and our top diplomats. But I see the point that Pannun, if not the Americans, can be booked under Canadian law. I mean, we should just go to town with these videos. Can you imagine if these videos were being made against the United States of America? What if these videos were being made by somebody in India against the United States of America and saying on these dates you cannot travel by United Airlines, we will balkanize America by 2040? I mean, what would be the reaction of the FBI?
This is permit me a few minutes on this, because I think you've raised some very serious issues, and these require some introspection and analysis. The first part, I think Terry has indicated to us that that Khalistan is part of a Canadian political issue. It's a political problem with the Canadians, and as he has said, that political parties want to pander to the Khalistanis or Khalistani supporters. Now, as far as that political process is concerned, India has been in dialogue with the Canadian political system, and diplomatically. I myself oversaw, before I retired, my last job was, among other things, to oversee India-Canadian relations, and I myself discussed this matter. And that goes back, I retired 13 years ago, so you can imagine how far back that was.
Yeah.
All that I received was a shrug. The Canadians simply weren't interested. They thought that this is not really an issue for them to consider, and that's unfortunate. Second is that should, as I told you, and I'm sorry if I'm being slightly repetitive, is it for me to tell the Canadian police if someone is breaking Canadian law, or is it for the Canadian police itself to take action and to examine whether a pronouncement is within the ambit of Canadian law or is it violating Canadian law? Terry is putting the onus on us as if it is our duty to show that the Canadians, look here, so-and-so Khalistani has made a wrong speech, here he's done it. This is on Canadian territory. It is for the Canadians to act. I mean, this is a strange argument.
I think Terry's trying to get in a sentence, and then I'll let you complete your point. Terry. Yes, Terry.
All I'm saying is it can't hurt to encourage the Canadians, can it? I mean, that is a diplomat's job. So look, here is the point of view of our government. Why don't you act? Here's where you could act. That's what I'm suggesting. It's not you saying, oh, well, it's not our job. I mean, basically, you're saying that's for the Canadians to do it. Agreed. Let them be encouraged by the Indians to do it.
Okay, let me get Ambassador Katju to complete his point. 1 second, sir. Just give me a second. Go ahead.
15 years ago, before I retired, told the Canadians, my Canadian counterparts, that look, you can't allow this. And all that I was told is that free speech is protected in Canada. I met a blank wall. Just as, and I regret to say, that we were in India, and Yash will agree with me, blew in our face telling our Western friends about the threat of terrorism that we were facing from Pakistan. And it took the tragedy of 9/11 to bring home to the West that what we were saying was correct.
Correct.
Don't tell me, Terry, that we've been faltering in our duty and not having dialogues. You can't have a dialogue with the deaf. And I'm saying this with absolute responsibility. Your people were deaf. And to an extent, they still remain deaf. Because you are protected from the oceans on both sides. Because you think that no one can hurt you on your soil. You think that the world is like this, that the world is not in bad neighborhoods. And that free speech has been made into some kind of a holy cow now. That even if violence is being promoted, balkanization of countries is being promoted, it's covered by free speech. Is that what is free speech? I'm sorry if I'm getting angry. I am angry. I mean, this is the extent of the ambit of free speech.
Yeah, but
This
I don't
what
think,
you've
to be
been
fair,
telling us for
to
more
be
than
fair to
15
Terry,
years.
he's not defending, what the Canadian state is doing on Khalistan. He's just giving his point of view on how to tackle them, Ambassador Katju. He'll speak for himself, but
I can't keep Barkha. I can't keep day in and day out. We've been saying this to our Canadian friends that look, please see the impact of what your people are saying. See what it is doing to our relationship.
Yeah. But what now? Then why aren't we doing more?
Wall.
Okay, so what next? What next? What next? That's the question, right? Like, okay, everybody has points.
Not what next? When you try something, when you push the thing forward,
maybe stop
and
maybe stop
no,
trading
as
do
as
something
Yash
more
rightly
extreme.
said, and
Yeah.
I think what Sanjay Verma said was right. I've been a diplomat, I've been an ambassador. It's my duty to have conversations. It was my duty to have conversations with my counterparts, to pick up all information in what is legitimately in a diplomatic fashion, which concerns the security and integrity of my country. That is what all diplomats are supposed to do.
Okay. We have to take last comments. Kushal, Terry, and Yasho in that order. Kushal, go ahead. You also have an update on the strange details and developments unfolding in Canada as we speak. Go ahead, Kushal.
So just as we speak, and I understand the agony of Ambassador Katju. Trust me, as an Indian, and and I understand the predicament of Terry is because I'm literally in that unique scenario where I'm 6 months in Canada, 6 months in India. Yeah. I kind of hear both sides, but just yesterday we come across this video of pamphlets being circulated in a Gurdwara in Surrey on behalf of a petition being made by Sukh Dhaliwal, a member of parliament of the Liberal Party of Canada, for a petition being pushed by a gentleman who's the husband of a former NDP minister of British Columbia, Rachna Singh, who was completely thrashed in the recent election, to reopen the Air India bombing. Barkha, the time has gone. I share Ambassador Katju's anger, which is why I am going on pleading the government of India. The Canadians will not listen to you because the Canadians, to use one more Hindi adage, the Canadians look at you as a kadi ninda turtle. That whenever you're going to come and talk about it, the Indians will be like, hum kadi ninda karte hain. And they're like, let them go on doing kadi ninda. Who cares? Sanuki. They have become so shameless. The only thing that hurts the Canadians, Barkha, and trust me, I'm talking to people over here, I know they are worried about it. Right now, as we speak, Ontario is so scared because immigration has reduced. Indian students are not coming. They're like, what are we going to do with our universities? Don't send your students to Canada. I repeat, until and unless you don't stop trade with Canada, the Canadian side is not going to listen to you, and this is not going to stop. Everything else is not going to work, and they are blaming Ujjal Dosanjh for the Air India bombing now. The Khalistanis outside Gurdwaras. What else is left? What else is left? Ujjal Dosanjh.
I think the video you're talking about is up on the screen now. Can you tell us what's happening there? Can you tell us what's happening in this video?
They have a pamphlet.
Yeah.
It's so depressing. That pamphlet, you know what that pamphlet says? It has a photo. That damn pamphlet, what it says is some facts about Air India bombing. On the 39th year of Kanishka bombing, we, the pro-Khalistan Sikhs, have gathered here today to show, and it's a long thing, and they bring Surinder Malik, Brij Mohan, Vice Consul of India, Davinder Ahluwalia, India diplomat, Siddharth Singh and Ujjal Dosanjh, prominent Indo-Canadian politician. He's a Canadian premier from
But what are you going to reopen Kanishka when you never brought anybody to justice?
I don't know. It's this, you can't take Canada seriously. I mean, I'll ask Terry to answer this. I have no words.
Okay, Terry, and also to a very angry Ambassador Katju, and then we'll give Yasho the last word. Could we unmute Terry, please?
All right.
Yeah.
First of all, I think Kushal is quite right to point a finger at it. This is another example of crossing the line. This isn't something that Canada can brush off as okay. A Liberal member of Parliament, Suk Dhaliwal, a member of the governing party of Canada, has been promoting this malicious claptrap about how India blew up its own plane. This is their latest push. They want to shift the blame. They've been photobombing memorial ceremonies for the victims' families. If you can imagine the indecency of this, they've been photobombing, arriving at the memorials on the 39th anniversary, for example, with flags and saying Khalistan Zindabad. So the mourners, the loved ones of the victims of the Air India bombing, cannot even remember them in peace because these Khalistanis are showing up at these events. So it's an absolute outrage. So something has to be done by the leadership in Canada, the political leadership, to speak up and say, look, we are not going to have this. This whole fiasco of blaming India if you're blowing up. I mean, ask somebody who knows about the evidence in the Air India trial, and there's a pile of evidence this high. I've got gigabytes of it on my hard drive proving that Khalistan terrorists blew up the plane led by Talvinder Parmar. It's not a question anymore. It's established. And spreading these kind of lies is the kind of thing that must be denounced. If you have a problem, if you can't get the Canadians to act under the criminal law, why can't we act as politicians? Why can't politicians say this is an outrage? Why can't they say we will not sign your nomination papers and let you run as a Liberal or a Conservative or an NDP? We're not going to let you run in our party if you're going to countenance these kinds of lies. So that's as a first step. You can complain all you want about Canadian law. Years later, maybe they'll change the law. But the power of shame should have an impact. And it won't have an impact if you don't try it. If you don't go after the Canadians and say, all right, we're not going to put up with this. We're going to call you out. And we think that you should act on this and act on your own team, act on your own politicians who are violating the laws of decency, at the very least, by allowing this kind of behavior.
Let me give the last word. It is shocking. I didn't actually know this was happening. So Kushal and Terry, thanks for sharing this with us. I mean, it just makes your skin crawl, Yashovardhan, to think that there's a Canadian politician, these Khalistani are distributing these pamphlets, a bombing on which justice was never served, right? There are people we've interviewed who've lost their entire families. There were 100 children on that plane, and now pamphlets are being distributed to suggest that, oh, it wasn't us, it was India who's responsible for bombing their own people. I mean, it is sickening beyond words. And to this, I say in the end, that while I understand and agree, I think each one of us does with Ambassador Katju's anger, why isn't there more of this anger visible? I mean, why are we just carrying on like this is one more troubled relationship? Like, should we be doing more? Yashovardhan.
Let me add a very important dimension to this whole issue, which you raised or somebody raised some time back. Is the Khalistan issue, which is being, really blown up by the Canadians in America and Canada, an issue in India? No. Is there any impact of that in India? No. There are some cohorts out here, agreeable. Therefore, I think there is a point in dialing down on the cacophony here that kind of rage, that kind of noise, and that kind of anger. Today, the world is not ruled by common sense, as Ambassador Katju says. It is ruled by noise. It's ruled by power, muscle. So yes, if the Canadian issue is so important to us, then we do what we have to do. For example, call the ambassadors here, give them all the dossiers, show them this is what we are saying, and this is what they are.
Years. That's what Ambassador Katju said. We've done it for years.
Wait, I have not completed. And secondly, we also try the other methodology in talking to everybody in Canada, saying all kinds of things. But if nothing works out, just ignore it, be indifferent. And as Kushal said, I agree with him that you try your best, you give it your best, and then say forget it. You stop your diplomatic contact or whatever. Stop your reverse immigration. Stop all that and let it go. Because one thing in the end, I must say, no average Canadian, no average American wants these jokers over there creating noise and this nuisance all over. They hate them. And maybe when the Canadian government changes, different party comes, maybe we have some kind of a dialing down of this issue, or maybe not.
I can see Kushal saying no. You want to just respond to that in 1 second, and then I'll let Yasho complete. Kushal?
Sir, हाथ जोड़ के कह रहा हूं, please don't have any hopes from the Conservative Party. Please don't have any hopes. They will only stop when they understand the language which they know the best. That is the language of trade. They speak in folk tongues. Barkha, ek aur pata lagane la. Last year we had sent low-level diplomats back, right? That was round one, sending diplomats back. Do you know there is a very interesting thing that had happened last year? And Katju sir, aap please confirm kar lijiyega ye jo main bol raha hu. There was a diplomat from Alberta that was requested by certain people inside Canada. Yaar, please don't send him back. We have not been that bad. And Indians, the Indian side, and I say this with full responsibility as an Indian passport holder, like fools, agreed and did not send that Albertan back. Why? Because we have good relations with Alberta. The Canadians speak in a folk tongue. The liberal says, oh, mera Khalistani puttar, oh, mera Khalistani puttar. And the conservatives say, yo, let's do trade. I know what they're doing. Who runs the India strategy for the Conservative Party, sir? Please tell me. Who is Tim Uppal? Who is Tim Uppal? I have no love for the Conservatives or the Liberals here. It is a uniparty when it comes to India, and Terry will back every single word I'm saying, because Terry and I are the only people. Imagine what Terry has to go through. They did not even find a publisher for Terry's book in Canada. Terry's publisher was an Indian. Imagine how well-oiled the Khalistani machinery is, which is why I've always stood up for Terry, because I know what the poor guy had to go through.
Yeah. Okay. Yasho, if you want to complete, I think Terry's wanting to say. Terry, are you trying to say something? Terry?
Thank you, Joel, for his kind remarks. I just want to add one small point, only it's not really small. And that is that India makes a mistake that it must recognize if, and I say if, it gets so angry at Canadian inaction that it resorts to illegal activity. At the moment, the FBI says it did, that an employee of the Indian government was involved in plotting murder of a Canadian citizen in Canada. Now, you may not like that citizen. You may not like Hardeep Singh Nijjar. But if India, and we haven't got the proof, the trial has not occurred in the death and the murder of Nijjar. But if India went across that line, that's a mistake. You've been drawn into anger. You put yourself in the wrong. Now, I would love to be proved wrong myself. I would love to have it shown that all of this evidence that the FBI gathered was incorrect. But it doesn't look like it when the Indian government has named and shamed and fired the accused Vikram Yadav. They're not saying to the Americans, oh, no, this is all lies. They're not saying that at all. They're basically implicitly endorsing the notion by the FBI, the Department of Justice in the United States, that yes, it's true, that indeed there was such a plot And that's why we've named and shamed our guy.
Okay, I have to now close. Ambassador Katju, yes, I am going to give you the last word. Can we? Yeah, go ahead, sir.
Can I speak for half a minute?
Yes, please.
Look, my anger, diplomats aren't supposed to get angry. We're supposed to be cool. I mean, former diplomats too. My anger was only at this allegation that we have not done anything. We haven't spoken to the Canadians. I was trying to tell Terry that, look, we have continuously, but we've not, it's like breaking your head against a wall. We have to be smart. Yes, but then you can't be smart against a wall. That's the point. And perhaps now we'll have to think of very many different ways. And as far as speaking out is concerned, please see MEA's statements. Jaishankar himself has said this many, many times. That that Khalistan is being, Khalistanis are being promoted, are being sheltered, etc. It's what else can we do in this case? Because it's part of the Canadian political process. Both our Canadian colleagues have said this. If something becomes part of that political process, another country's political process, I would submit to you it goes beyond the ambit of diplomacy. And then it is for that country to introspect. It's the foreign diplomat can do very little.
No, it's true, but we can't carry on as if
it's has never worked.
But business as usual cannot carry on. Business as usual. It cannot be business as usual, right? If they don't change and they are celebrating those who have assassinated India's prime minister, if they're openly threatening to balkanize India, if Yasho believes that bomb hoaxes are a planned operation, and at the same time Gurpatwan Pannun is releasing videos saying don't travel by so-and-so airline, it can't be business as usual. Oh, India, Canada, India, it can't be business as usual. We should, I mean, I'm not trying to teach anyone how to do their job. I'm just asking you, so I'm sure you agree it can't be business as usual. I think Yasho's wanting to say something. Yasho, quickly.
No, I'm just saying that diplomatic channels should always remain open. That's what I feel. But if you should go to the extreme, you can cut off your trade, you can do whatever you have, but always be willing to talk, whether it's Canada, Pakistan, Timbuktu, or whatever. That should be the
okay. We leave it there. But yes, it is chilling and it's disgusting to think of Kanishka, with no justice served, 100 children dead on that plane. Maybe at a time when India didn't have the heft to make the kind of noise, because I think, as Ambassador Katju said, it took 9/11 for the West to actually understand terrorism. And now to think that there are political people releasing pamphlets trying to create a conspiracy theory that India was behind this bombing. I mean, it is just all revolting. But yes, I take the point that we can't respond from emotion alone. As they say, watch this space. Terry Milewski, Kushal, Mehra, Ambassador Katju, Yashovardhan Azad, a pleasure. And to our audience, thank you. See you tomorrow.
It's great to see you here. Thank you for watching our work. If you haven't subscribed yet, don't forget to click the bell icon and subscribe to Mojo's Story and support independent, robust journalism.